Well, quite extraordinary. We were all getting ready to start our innings break show about half an hour ago. Shikhar Dhawan had other ideas, and at the back of a splendid solo effort by a former Sunrisers son, the Punjab Kings have managed something. 143 for 9 after they used the impact sub as an additional batter. You could say tactically for the first time that we've seen. We have seen batters come in towards the fag end of an innings, but this was a pure Shikhar Dhawan effort that keeps the Punjab Kings somewhat in it. Otherwise, it was all the Sunrisers and Mayank Markande with an excellent start to his IPL 2023. We look back at that innings on ESPN Cricket for T20 Tamod. We've just about recovered from Rinku Singh and Nitish Rana and Venkatesh Iyer, and Shikhar Dhawan's added to the list of lovely innings by left-handers on this Sunday in the IPL. Deep Dasgupta, Matt Roller here. We'll hear from Tom Moody in just a moment. What a wonderful innings from Shikhar. If anyone deserved 100, I think we were all rooting for it.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it was so close, man. But what an innings. I mean, obviously he's been batting really well right through this season. But this was very special. Just to hang in there till the end. The maturity of that innings was absolutely brilliant from him.
You've been cranking up the numbers as that partnership was building. What do we know so far of this extraordinary sort of last wicket partnership, Matt?
Well, I think the main thing is it's the first ever 50 partnership for the last wicket in the IPL. I think by some distance the biggest last wicket stand as well. I think it was 31, the most recent one. But yeah, so for Shikhar to have scored as many of those as he did, I think the number 11 Mohit Rathi only managed to face 2 balls. So a pretty stunning solo effort by Dhawan, and I think we talk as well quite regularly about sort of the value of the anchor batter, and I know this is an extreme case, but this is where the anchor, the whole point of that role, maybe you can see that it lowers the ceiling of what you can reach, but it raises the floor. And what Dhawan's done there is, even if they lose this game, we know how often those playoff spots come down to net run rate at the end of the season, and what we could easily see is that game that last wicket stand having a huge impact come the end of the season. Those extra 50 runs, if it keeps
the Sunrisers out, perhaps. For a team that was anyway battling 2 heavy defeats, they would have been thinking we could get 80 here and restrict the team for 80 and try and get our net run rate back in the right direction, right? Let's go to Tom Moody, who has the pleasure of working with the Shikhar Dhawan at a time where perhaps he wasn't striking at the 140, 150 mark. Doesn't quite matter. The value of Shikhar Dhawan was seen today. Tom, you must be firstly very pleased for him, and secondly, that's a rare innings. We don't see these kinds of innings by a farming batter, lead batter, batting right through and scoring nearly 80% of the runs of his team.
Yeah, absolutely thrilled for Shikhar. He's a very hard-working player over many years, and he's had a stellar career for India, but for every franchise he's represented, Sunrisers, then Delhi, and then onto Punjab. He's left his mark, and it's interesting that the more mature he's become as a player, the more he's been able to shift through those gears. And we saw a good example of that this evening, where he was watching everything fall apart around him, but he still managed to remain composed and find a few extra gears when he needed to just keep sort of pushing that total to a respectable level.
You sense also Shikhar is at peace where he is. I've heard some of his interviews. There are times that Shikhar Dhawan was on the fray of national selection. He's still there and thereabouts for ODI cricket, but T20, you think now he's playing, he's sort of almost at peace with where he is from the game that you're seeing?
Absolutely, and even otherwise in life and stuff like that. He's always been happy-go-lucky kind of a person, but I think obviously there have been a few issues off the field as well, but it seems like he's found a really nice space for himself. He, again, the way he's batted, the responsibility, last couple of, again, I mean, that's a very interesting topic to kind of discuss and argue about, is the sheet anchor role, but yeah, games like these, it's like priceless to have someone like him who knows how to shift gears, who can bat all 20 overs and can bat with number 11.
Shall we revisit that with you, Tom, as well? Matt brings up the point of the sheet anchor, and I wonder if it's been brought into new light with the 10 teams where suddenly the talent's been spread. You might have games like this more often where there are top order collapses. Punjab also went in a batter light today, and perhaps there is room for the anchor of, say, 5 years ago in T20 cricket?
It depends how you define the sheet anchor. If you're defining it as someone that strikes at 120, I don't think there is a role for it. But if you're defining it as someone that is striking north of 130, 135, I think there's very much a role for that per top order that bats a volume of the overs and the team builds around that. You still need around that person players that have high percentage boundary strike rate to enable you to maximise your total. I still think, they are still very, very good players, but you need to build those power players around them.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, so quickly, let's look at Shikhar's last innings, which ended with his strike rate being around 150, but for major part of that innings, he was going at 110, 115, but he's moved his gears and he started scoring more runs. But the point is, if he gets out, say at that point when he's played 20 deliveries and only got 25, it doesn't look that great. But if he goes on and continues and finishes, then at, let's say, 50 of 35, then it looks very, very good. So I think at times we look at the end result and not the process. So there'll be times when he would get out after playing that initial 20-ball, 25-run knock. And then suddenly it looks, no, that maybe they have lost the game there. But if he finishes with 35 and 50, then it looks, wow, what a knock.
Yeah, I guess this is the game where you can say, yeah, the batter's entitled to catch up, whereas there is a debate on whether you do catch up. Do you ever get those balls back? But when you've seen your team 10 for 2, 20 for 3, 60 for 4.
There's a different situation.
And I think it's particularly important actually to talk about the context of Punjab Kings as well, because if we think about what they were like last season, they were a side who was sort of boom and bust and found it very difficult to string wins together. I think they barely won consecutive games. They barely won back-to-back games across the whole season and ended up, I think, missing out by one win, something like that. So we're talking pretty fine margins. But the one thing that they lacked, partly because Darwan wasn't in the greatest form as well, was that guy to bat around the high-intent batters that they had throughout the rest of the team. And if they can manage to achieve that this year, and if they can get Darwan at his best, in his best form, who knows?
Yep. All right. Fair enough. I'll give Matt a breather to appreciate that Arsenal are 2-0 up at Anfield.
Oh, dear Lord. And you guys were waiting for it, right? For last 4 overs, you guys
Gabriel Jesus on Easter Sunday. Awesome. Sorry, let's focus again on this game. Now, 143 is terrific for where Punjab were, Tom. But all things considered, would Hyderabad still take this?
Look, at the start of the game, they would absolutely take this. I think it looks a good surface. Just the stroke play that was demonstrating shows that it's a good surface to bat on. Yeah, look, it took a bit of turn, which was interesting. Not alarming turn, but there's enough turn to keep any spinner interested. But probably a pass score is more around that 175, 180. So they're well short of that.
Okay, before we move to Mayank Markande, Tom, give me your thoughts on the decision that was probably taken in the dugout. Shikhar Dhawan himself was batting on Sikandar Raza being activated as the impact sub when the batting seemed in trouble, which clearly rules Kagiso Rabada out.
Yeah, look, I think it had to happen. Look, it didn't work out. But to me, it's one of those things with the activation of the sub. You look at the not so much the outcome. You look at the process, the thinking behind the decision, and the thinking behind the decision at that time was correct. They needed another batsman to, potentially get a half century or more to build a partnership to get score up around that 170 mark. It didn't work out, so be it. But I think that what we'll see over the whole tournament is we'll focus on so much more so the outcome of the decision against really the strategy at the point of them making that decision.
Did they actually go into this game a batter short? I'm just trying to think. In their batting first side, they left out Rajapaksha. Short came in. What was the other change they made? As a batting first team, did they actually go batting? I mean, Raza himself. Raza himself has been named in a batting first team. So they technically named a team with a batter light. Now,
absolutely, and that's the reason Sam Curran had to come and bat at 5. Because of that. But anyways, see, the good part is Sikandar Raza can bowl, and he has bowled in the last 2 games as well. So at least you got another bowling option in him. The fact that I just saw a while ago, while Shikhar was going out, he checked whether there was dew or not, and surprisingly, so far we haven't seen a lot of dew. So if there isn't much, and the ball's spinning, I believe he can come handy as a bowler as well.
Yeah. It's a curious one. Tom endorses the decision, saying the thinking was right, but it is the first time we're seeing this. I'm trying to think of whether you try and throw all your batters first into it. You know, they still had Shah Rukh Khan, Harpreet Brar. And then what if you carry on? Because you saw Heinrich Klaassen padded up in the last game. He wasn't needed. Then you could use your sub differently. But they took almost a preemptive call. Do you sense more teams will do that?
I can see it happening in those circumstances where you lose that many early wickets. But I do think it is a slightly different case when the batter you're bringing in is someone who you can back to bowl at least a few overs if required in Raza. Like if the dew doesn't settle in, and if there's turn on offer, there's every chance he'll come on and bowl a proper spell in this chase.
And we do know spin is effective because Mayank Markande has shown us that 4 for 15 on his Sunrisers debut, picked up as a bargain, you'd think, at the auction. Mumbai Indians clearly didn't need him. They had plenty of strong bowling, so they didn't need Mayank Markande. But that was very good for a player who's not got a lot of opportunity or IPL time, even though he did make an impression a few years ago, Deep.
I mean, he's one of the most underrated bowlers in the last few years. If you look at Mayank Markande's numbers and his performances over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't think he's got his due. And I'm glad he's got an opportunity and he's shown what he can do, which, I mean, a couple of years ago, I still remember I saw him in a Ranji Trophy game bowling with a red ball. And I thought he can play in the longer format as well. So I'm personally a big fan of his, and I'm glad that he's got those wickets.
Yeah, funny how these things work, Tom. A team loses, they make wholesale changes that you've said, of course, that you're not a fan of seeing when you're part of management. And then this kid takes 4 in spite of Adil Rashid doing little wrong. And you think, oh, what a genius move. It's such a funny sort of thing, this tactical selection game.
Yeah, it can be. But in this particular case we're talking overseas, same discipline. So really it's just moving chairs with regards to your combination of your overseas players. So, you know, most squads have that combination where you have your overseas wrist spinner in this case, and you also have a backup domestic wrist spinner. So you can then have the flexibility to play an extra fast bowler or an extra batsman. And Markande has stepped up to the plate and shown now the Sunrisers that you know, they can afford to keep Adil Rashid on the bench, which is not good news for him, and have Marco Jansen or Faruqi or whoever it is they choose to, you know, balance out their side.
All right, second innings underway. Harry Brook has come out to open. You've not seen that very often. You said that at our pre-show, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the 4th time in his T20 career, so it's a new role for him, but it's one you could see working, I think, especially because of the fact that he'll face the seamers first up in all likelihood.
There's the familiarity of Sam Curran too.
Exactly.
Ball.
So I can see how it would work, and especially, you know, when overseas players come in and are thrown in at the deep end in the IPL, facing spin, sort of coming in and facing the opposition's best spinner in the middle overs, that is a pretty challenging role, so maybe it will help him against leg spin, which we know is a potential weakness for Brook if he's already got himself in, if he's already up and running with an early boundary, just as we've seen. Yeah,
I'm sold by Tom. You don't look at the outcome, but you look at the thinking behind the decision.
Absolutely.
Do you like the thinking behind the decision now that we know he's come to open?
Absolutely. I mentioned this, and I think overseas middle order, playing for the first time in these conditions, it's a very, very tough ask. You rather have him open or 3, where the ball's new, ball's coming onto the bat. You don't have to go out and face top-class spinners straight up. I think this is a much better position for someone like him.
Tom, final word from you?
I would have gone with Markram to open, given that he's got a history of opening the batting, and kept Brook where he has earned his stripes, and also that's where he's been brought to play that role at 4 and 5.
Okay, interesting. We will see if the decision pays off. You've heard the thinking behind it. You've heard both sides of the argument. And if the Sunrisers pick up some points, it'll be nice to see everyone having tasted the bitter taste of defeat in the first 10 days of the IPL. Otherwise, it's Punjab Kings to be the only unbeaten team. We'll see how things go. Pick up the chat at the end of the game on ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout. Download the mobile app as well. Keep you updated from plenty of things you'd like to read and see again after Rinku Singh was the Easter Bunny for KKR earlier today in Ahmedabad. We'll pick up the chat at the end of this Super Sporting Sunday. Bye-bye.